Okay, so this is me, and I'm going to do a little round test here. You're all very welcome to the Story Slam. Testing 1, 1, 2. Is that okay? I'm not too loud.
The fastest way to get to know somebody is actually if you ask them to tell you a story. So somebody could get up and they could talk for 20 minutes. You might feel like you're still strangers at the end. But when they tell a story at the Dublin Story Slam, it's like within 7 minutes, you've become the closest confidant of that person.
So I work as a comedian and a host, and I suppose the Story Slam is different from a traditional kind of comedy club environment that I would normally work in. First of all, it's not professional comedians or anything like that. It's just people from all walks of life sharing their story. And that's what I think brings the diversity to the night, where you can go from somebody sharing something really maybe vulnerable and moving and emotional to, like, you know, a good old-fashioned fart story or something, you know, just really off the wall funny. And there's something very honest about the Story Slam, and the audience and the storytellers kind of meet each other in this sort of like space where it's like everybody just takes each other as they are, and you don't always get that in a comedy club.
You could hear any type of story. We've had stories where people have been on the run from gangsters, people have been in prison in different countries, people have been stuck up a mountain in a storm, you know, dramatic situations, but also people have woven beautiful, dramatic stories from just the time that their shorts washed away when they were going swimming. And those little dramas still capture the audience. The audience are with the people every step of the way.
Have you ever been at a crossroads in your life? Sometimes it's easier to see them in the rearview mirror than when you're approaching them.
So I took a big deep breath in and I kind of plopped myself onto the couch, and then and I could feel the adrenaline running through me, kind of pretty similar right now. And
no matter how dark it gets, no matter what you lose, no matter how much pain you're in, no matter what is happening, there is always hope. And I feel very confident in saying that, because I would not exist to stand here today and tell you all this story if that wasn't the case.
We sit at the side of the stage and you watch a person who might come up and they might be a bit nervous at first, and you just see them grow into the story that they're telling, and you can see them liberated by telling this story sometimes, and it's really a lovely thing to witness.
I went up there looking forward to telling the story because it was a story that I absolutely love, about my mother and her undertaker. So I felt very comfortable telling it. And then because of the lovely audience that we had there, I actually ad-libbed while telling the story. And then afterwards, it was such a high, absolute buzz. It really, really was lovely. It was just a lovely, kind, reactive audience. And it really was just a fantastic experience.
The night I won, I kind of went up on a whim and told a story, and I think the lack of preparation actually went to my favour, I think, you know. So there's an element to that of trying not to be too polished, because I think that's what the crowd appreciates, you know.
It's cathartic, it is confidence boosting, and also it's really, really helpful to kind of think of a period of your life or a specific thing and package it up in a way. It really gives you that message, and then there's just something about the kind of the lovely metaphorical closing of the chapter once the story's done. You're like, that's it now. Done. I can't recommend it enough. There was that moment where I was like, do I stick out my tongue and show him? Or do I tell him about my infertility? And I knew, even in my madness, that the poor guard was not being paid enough for either of these. This is a bit different because I know it's the same people and I know it's the same audience and the same atmosphere, but we're in the Abbey, like we have hundreds of years of history. It's hard not to be like, this is just my story. Why do I get to tell it at the Abbey, you know?
There's a little bit more pressure because you've more time to think about the story and more time to think about all the things that can go wrong in the story. But I feel very grateful and very excited to be part of this because it's a really supportive, really incredible community of people.
Even though she knows and I know that the world isn't fair or nice and it's cruel, but she chooses to play and imagine anyway. And also that here was an adult that hadn't let me down.
It's always good for everyone to push yourself outside your comfort zone, and public speaking is what the top 3 fears people have. So I think there's something to be gained from putting yourself out there and giving something a whirl anyway, you know.
And I resisted my urge of my usual routine, which was getting a snack box from Supermax because I didn't want to be eating another bird in front of JJ.
I think the competitive element gives it a nice kind of, maybe a purpose or something towards the end and sort of finishes it off with a nice neat bow by the end. But really, you know, I don't think I've ever been to a story slam where it feels like, oh, well, there was only one good story and then the rest were just losers. It's not about that. It's much more kind of collaborative feel to the whole thing.
We know that all around the country there are people who have a story to tell. And again, it's people that maybe never thought there was a stage for them to tell that story, a venue, a space. And we just love to travel around and create spaces all over the country for people to share those stories.
I think we want to do bigger things at the Story Slam. So we have a podcast, you know, I want to make that even bigger. We want to do shows maybe that would be beyond Dublin. Coming out of that break from COVID and having that amount of time where you're on your own, you realize, you know, just how important it is to kind of work with people and to put on events together, to share, to come together to share each other's stories. So I think it's helping more people tell their stories. That's my big ambition for the future of the Dublin Story Slam.